So rise, dear Monaro, call them out, demand the truth, dispel the doubt, for governments must serve the land, not crush its people with sleight of hand.
Tom, welcome to the Monaro Zone. It's great to have you here.
Thank you, Chris. It's beautiful to be out on your property.
Now, for those that don't know, Tom is an inspiration to many in our region.
He's a really good navigator, but he couldn't find your place.
That's by intention. Tom is an entrepreneur, an engineer, and an elite athlete. Tom, why don't we start?
You should have prefaced all of those with was.
No, he's still out.
He was an entrepreneur, he was an elite athlete, and he was a whatever the other thing was.
An engineer.
Engineer, yeah. Oh, I am an engineer.
You are an engineer. You are an engineer. So, where are you from originally, and what brought you to the Snowy Monaro?
I'm from Sydney, Chris. I grew up there, and at 18 years old I moved to Canberra because I went to the careers advisor at school. I went to a fancy school. I went to Sydney Grammar, but I wasn't into music and I wasn't really super academic. I was fine, but and damn, the Chinese used to win all the prizes too. And I was just hearing about how hard you guys work. So, but you know, I just wanted to ski, and I wanted to win a gold medal at the Winter Olympics. And so I went to the careers advisor at school and said, "What's the easiest course closest to the snow?" And he picked out science at ANU, majoring in psychology. And are you a psychologist?
I have a science degree majoring in psychology.
Yeah, it was so easy, right? Well, I don't know. It wasn't easy. I spent 5 years doing a 3-year degree. But I did a lot of skiing and training, and I did love living in Canberra just because there's bike paths and tracks and bush and yeah.
And is that where you did engineering as well?
No, so in 1994 I had just missed out on the Lillehammer Winter Olympics for the Aussie team. I was in the squad with my wife Alina, and they only took 2 skiers out of 5 of us in the squad. So Alina, Finn, and myself missed out. And then I was 23, 24. And I thought, you know what? I think I better do something. Because I've got nothing from the uni I did. And I thought, I'm never going to get another 4 years to the next Olympics, and plus I'm going to be finishing in the bottom 2/3 anyway. And even though I loved my sport, my whole life has been about sport, Chris, from a very young age. I've loved, and I don't love going to a gym, and I never did. I love being outside in nature, which is why I really loved cross-country skiing, because training for that was running, mountain biking, when mountain bikes were invented, cycling, kayaking, and then you do fun things, orienteering. And so, yeah, in 94, I thought, well, I've just missed out on Lillehammer Winter Olympics. I did go to 3 World Championships before that. I think I better do something else. And my dad was a mechanical engineer, and I was always interested in that sort of thing. So I went and studied at UTS in Sydney, mechanical engineering, and that took me 5 years of a 5.5-year course. And I finished that and went and worked in Mount Isa for 3 years as an engineer with Mount Isa Mines. And Alina got a job running their contracts department because she's a lawyer. She was a corporate commercial lawyer. And during this whole time, we'd sort of gotten, in 94, I'm like, well, I guess I've had a fun athletic life. Now it's time to settle down and get a job and blah, blah, blah. And I hadn't got all the athleticism out of me. So I still loved doing sport. And we got into these, we were doing long distance orienteering events called row gains, where you have to be a good navigator, and then got into adventure racing, which were awesome. So our first adventure race was in 1997, and it was in Cairns, and it was put on by Mark Burnett, that owns Survivor and started Survivor. He also did The Apprentice and a few other shows. I think he did something about finding In Excess, a new lead singer. And so he put on this race called the Eco Challenge, and we did it, and it was 5 days non-stop. You choose when you stop and sleep. There was kayaking, a bit of white water paddling, flat water, ocean kayaking. There was trekking, and not rock climbing, but jumaring, which is mechanical ascenders up ropes, abseiling, swimming, horse riding, white water, rafting down the Tully. So yeah, it was just like, we were just blown away how fun this was.
How many kilometers was it?
I don't know. It took nearly 6 days for us. We came fourth in that race, and it's teams of 4, and I don't know if it was 600 Ks all up, but it's slow distance, and you choose when you stop and sleep. So we had no idea what to do, but we'd stop and have a 15-minute nap here and on the first night, and then push through, and then stop and have an hour on the second night, and then I think we slept for 4 hours on the third night. But you don't really know what you're doing. But you have to be fresh. And I have to tell this to you, Chris, you've got to recover. You have to sleep. Otherwise your performance drops off. You can't navigate, you can't make decisions, you can't do, you've got to transition as quick as possible when you get from a end of a track into a mountain bike, where you have to pull your bike out of a box, put it together, get your right gear, make sure your compulsory gear's with you. You've got to be able to concentrate. And when you're fresh, you can do that in 15 minutes. When you're tired, it might take up to 4 hours of bumbling around.
There's no doubt that you are an inspiration, not just to me, but to my family. You're the reason that we have this funky monkey gym set. We saw your kids, Archie and Jackson, doing chin-ups with 2 fingers.
Nice.
I'm not sure what they're called, but they have 2 fingers, and they're doing reps of 10.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, we do the 3 R's, reading, arithmetic, and writing. And it's like, I think we're missing the 4th, which is reps. And I was like, oh my word, these kids are amazing. I think we've got to get a funky monkey gym set.
Awesome. I'm glad to have inspired you.
But what I've learned is, just by having it doesn't mean you can do it.
Yeah, it's a bit vacant right now, but I'm sure it gets used.
I want to confirm, you've got an engineering degree as well as a science degree.
Yep.
And your wife has a legal degree.
Yeah, she did science law at ANU, and her science was biochemistry and law. Yeah.
So you guys are super academic, super elite athletes as well.
No, we were. Yeah, I wouldn't call us academic. Yeah, I mean, we've got the pieces of paper, and I mean, saying that I'm not academic, I almost got the university medal for in my engineering degree. A girl from Cooma beat me.
Wow. So on top of all your
and I don't mean to gloat. Yeah, I'm very humble.
You're very humble as well.
But no one would, if people know me, they wouldn't believe that happened. Yeah, but I loved it. I mean, if I love something, yeah, it's so easy. Like we were talking before, you don't need to work. You need to find your passion and do it. And good things will come.
Wow.
Play that to the family. But yeah, it's true. You can't be just busting your butt to banging your head against a wall and doing something you don't love. Like it's wrong on all levels. Yeah.
You've also become a health advocate.
Well, so this takes me back to 2006. Well, I go back to an adventure race in 2004, and many things might have led up to when I got sick in 2006, but you sort of lose. This will go into the fluoride discussion, but it's very hard to remember what you've been exposed to in your life in terms of health. And most people, I was the same, you have no consideration for what you're doing to your body. Your body is bulletproof. You can go and go and go and until you crash. So this is where I'll come back to this from my history, but in 2006 I got Graves' disease, which is an autoimmune disease where the thyroid is overactive and puts out too much thyroid hormone. And I had no idea what had happened for the doctor to know I had a problem with my thyroid is because I was selected to be the Australian representative at the Land Rover G4 Challenge based upon going to some trials with 50 other Aussies down at Werribee in Victoria and doing all these really fun activities.
What is that?
The G4 Challenge was an event that Land Rover used to put on. It's superseded what they used to have, an event called the Camel Trophy, which was mostly four-wheel drive based to showcase their vehicles. And they changed that to be this Land Rover G4 Challenge, which was still using the vehicles, but the more modern Land Rovers, and now most cars, almost drive themselves. Not talking driverless, but drive themselves in terms, you're in a bit of mud, you just dial up mud, and you're on rocks, you dial up rock crawl. So it was showcasing how good the vehicles were with punters who aren't forward drivers like myself and other people, but having an event which is more adventure racing based with driving. So basically what it was when the event happened, it was navigating. So you had to navigate around. The one I was selected for was in Bangkok, then a big convoy to Laos and crossing the Mekong to go into Laos, and then 2 weeks around Laos. I think it was 2 weeks around Laos, and then they flew everyone in their private charter 747 to Rio, and there was a big fun setup on Rio, driving on obstacles and swimming, and that was just for a day. And then they went to Bolivia, and it was another 2 weeks or 10 days in Bolivia up on the salt plains called Salar de Uyuni and elsewhere in Bolivia. And so it was navigation, it was horse riding, it was doing funky little things like driving a Laos tractor, and paddling through caves in Laos for like an hour through a tunnel of a river through a natural tunnel. So really fun stuff. So I didn't end up going to this event because I cut my foot really badly just about 4 weeks before the event. But back to where I was going was you had to be vaccinated to go in the event. You had to have all your travel shots. And to me, that was, normal because I'd grown up in a normal family that now I don't call normal. But that's what you do. That's what the bulk of the population do. Because no one's questioning. And why would you question? Like, to me, you went to the doctor if you were sick. The doctor made you well. It's the greatest load of crap. The only person that makes you well is yourself. So we, after getting these shots, it was DTaP, MMR, yellow fever, and then they said, you've had Hep B shots. If you've had a few, you might have antibodies, so you might not need one. So instead of us giving you that injection at this appointment in Sydney, get a blood test from your doctor and see if you've got the antibodies to Hep B. So a month later or so, I went to the doctor in Canberra, got a blood test to check if I had Hep B antibodies, and he rang me a couple of days later and he said, "Yep, you're fine for Hep B, but I want you to come in and see me. There's a problem with your thyroid." And I didn't know anything about what that might be. I was a bit frightened, as you do, because that's what happens when you go down this pathway. And as I said, you're bulletproof until you're not. So at that point, it's like, holy crap, what's wrong? And then you get this cascade in your mind of, do I have cancer? Do I blah, blah, blah? Am I dying? So I felt fine, which was weird. But it was just, he just picked up in the thyroid, one of the tests is TSH, which is thyroid stimulating hormone. And that's something coming from the pituitary, hypothalamus and pituitary, to tell your thyroid to produce, to boot in and produce T4, and a bit of T3, which are the two thyroid hormones. And so my TSH was nearly zero. So knowing what I know now, it's showing something was putting the brakes on my thyroid producing the thyroid hormones. So the doctor said, look, I'll send you to a specialist. That was they're called an endocrinologist. I went to the endocrinologist in Canberra, and he said, yep. Before I'd even said anything, he said to me, I don't know why people get this, but you're on the way to developing Graves' disease. You've got these antibodies. Your body's attacking the thyroid. Don't know why people get it. We see runs of it, but there's nothing natural you can do. We're just going to wait and watch until your readings are out of range, and then we're going to start giving you this treatment, which is taking a drug called neomercazole to suppress the thyroid producing the hormones. And I mean, looking back on that now, it's like preposterous that if it's an autoimmune disease, that means my body's attacking my thyroid. Why? They don't know the cause. Like, how about toxicity in the thyroid? Something's causing the thyroid not to be appearing as my own body's tissues to my immune system. Of course my immune system is going to attack it. What could be there? I had lots of mercury amalgams in my mouth. I'd lived in mold. My guts were crappy because I had probably 4 doses of antibiotics a year from age 0 to age 17 when I got chronic fatigue the first time. So it's quite it's you know, we don't want to focus on our devastations, but I don't, and I never did. And to me, all I wanted to do was get well, which I don't think everyone has that same mentality. And we see that in the victim mentality, you know, and people that get stuck with their illnesses. And I don't know, I don't think they like it, but there could be a secondary gain in that they get support. They either get financial support or emotional support or poor such and such. And it feels good to people's ego to get stroked. So I saw a bit of that in the meeting 2 weeks ago. But anyway, I went on and I got full-blown Graves' disease. I took the drugs for a year.
What does Graves' disease, what are the symptoms?
So yeah, thank you for asking, but it's when they were waiting and watching, I started running hot. So your thyroid is controller of your metabolism and how fast you run. Not how fast you run, but how pumped up your body is. So I felt pumped up, I was getting heart palpitations, I was hot, and you can either lose weight or eat more to balance the losing the weight, and my appetite just shot up. I just remember being really, really hot, doing a couple of events. Like I did an adventure race where Alina was not only carrying my pack because I was struggling, she was carrying, it was a team of 3, she was carrying me, our teammate's pack as well, a friend called Andrew Crawley, because he was overheating. But I was overheating, it wasn't normal to me. So she's carrying 3 backpacks up Mount Coot-tha in Brisbane on this adventure race. And in a Rogaine, same thing. With a couple of hours into this 24-hour World Championship Rogaine in the Warren Bungles, and I said to the guys, I'm stuffed, I have to sit down. I was like, blah. And then you're tired. So yeah, this is bad. So, I took this drug for a year or a year and a half, and then the endocrinologist said, yep, we don't put you on that drug for any longer. We think you're good now. You probably have a spontaneous recovery, and off you go. And I think then they check your bloods every few months, and my readings went out of range again. Went back to him. He said, oh, look, now we don't really give you a second course of this, but we put you on, we give you a dose of radioactive iodine. And I'm like, oh, okay. I mean, I still had that program thinking, which everyone has, because that's how we're set up. It's a setup from birth. It's a total setup. We are programmed from birth, unless we're lucky, or unless somehow we're connected into some other power that you're just like Shawnee is. So, look, I just took this radioactive iodine, but first I asked all the doctors I knew, because I had a lot of friends, and they said, yep, that's what you do. So I believed them, and I went to take this pill at the endocrinologist's office in, where was it? It was in Woden, near Canberra Hospital. And he goes, okay, on the table there's a lead-lined container. There's a glass of water in that lead-lined container. So you take the lid off, there's a pill in it. I want you to take that out, put it in your mouth, have a sip of water, swallow the pill, and it's done. But I'm just going to stand against the wall away from you. So I'm looking at this lead-lined container, and on it said Lucas Heights. And I'm like, what the hell? That's the nuclear reactor in Sydney. And I mean, of course, it's got to come from somewhere, but I thought, isn't that a bit agricultural? So anyway, I did it. I did what he said, swallowed the pill, and as soon as I swallowed that pill, that's what I woke up from. Like instantly, my mind's gone, oh crap, what have I done? And if I'd have known what I know now, I would have got into some binders and some fulvic and humic acid and charcoal and stuff. But I didn't, and I thought, something's not right with this. I've been told a big fat lie, and the doctor had told me there were no side effects at all, and it was a tiny little dose that wouldn't affect me. This endocrinologist I had, and I'm not faulting anybody here. This is the system. As I said, it's a setup the whole way through. I went to another endocrinologist because my endocrinologist retired hurt. He was intolerant to everything. He couldn't eat anything. I don't know what he was eating in the end, but he was quite ill. So he sent me to another one, and he said, oh, great, you've had radioactive iodine. So, yeah, we're going to have to check your bloods every 3 months or 6 months. 3 months to start with, then back it off to 6. Because you know that your thyroid will just slowly burn out over time, and you won't have a functioning thyroid. And my mouth dropped, and he looks at me and goes, oh, you didn't know that? And I said, no. I was told there were no side effects. Anyway, I mean, I wouldn't have known what else to do anyway, because that was the care. And so that was 2008, and I actually had a flare up, almost like they call it a thyroid storm after that. And so I went back to him. That was 5 months later, and he said, oh, this can happen. It's rare, but it can happen. And I was super hot again, and everything's going crazy again. And they put me on Neoma because even though before they said they don't give you a second course of that. So I did that, and it settled it down, but it's only it's not addressing the cause. It's only treating the symptom and it's switching you off to the pain, really. And so I was functioning again, but at that time, I was not doing well at all. And nobody knew this except poor Alina had to deal with me. I was anxious because I was waking up at night, at 1 a.m., 2 a.m., feeling like I couldn't breathe. It's a term called air hunger. that I know now, but I could sit on the edge of the bed going, geez, am I going to survive the night? And having been, plus I was getting these heart palpitations, these ectopic heartbeats, which frightened the crap out of me. Having been an athlete, you kind of know every single heartbeat, and you know that it's working perfectly. So for something to, like a little snap to something in the heart that you feel is wrong, like on my very first ectopic heartbeat, I thought I was going to drop dead. Yeah, and it's, you go to the doctor and they say, oh, that's normal. Some people get thousands. You go, well, I don't care. This is not normal to me, and I don't like it. So anyway, yeah, this went on for a few years, and I just sort of we had our own business. Back to being an entrepreneur, I would never call myself an entrepreneur. I did have a successful business, and we did very well selling that business. Not that we ever planned to sell it to Ironman, and it's the world's second biggest trail running event.
We'll get to that.
Yeah.
But how did you beat the Graves' disease?
Well, I then, and I was feeling so crappy. A friend of mine, she's Swiss, and she lived in Canberra at the time, and her brother, half brother, he was the founding and the owner of this Paracelsus clinic in Switzerland. And I tried acupuncture and all sorts of natural. So I'd switched from medicine into other things, thinking, well, that was no good, let's try something else. So homeopathy, nothing really gets to the root cause though. It certainly was helping in a more natural way, but it wasn't, it was turning the burner down. It wasn't undoing the problem. So I went to this Swiss clinic for 3 weeks, and it was pretty holistic. It looked at your dental health. I still had mercury amalgams in my teeth. I think I probably had 4 or 5 of them. I had some root canals from old sporting injuries. And so they took out my mercury, they pulled my root canal teeth because they're toxic. Well, they're all contaminated with bacteria and fungus and who knows what else. But so they did that. They gave me all these nice treatments, like infusions of vitamin C and detox to chelate heavy metals. And so I felt pretty good there. And I left there and went back. We were actually living in... We'd escaped our business because I was so exhausted. I couldn't function anymore. We're still running this really professional race series and this trail running event. And nobody knew, like I probably didn't look so good, and I probably was a bit quieter than I used to be, but I was embarrassed to talk about this. I didn't like talking about being sick because I'd been like Tarzan and fit and strong and healthy, and it was embarrassing to me to show up as this weakling, this piss weak, sick guy. So we after running our last event for that season in May, we went and lived in Park City in Utah just to relax and I had a lovely time there. It was a bit of escapism really, away from everyday life, and I flew from there to Switzerland to go to this clinic, had all this dental work done and all these infusions and other nice treatments, and came back 3 weeks later, and then my biggest symptom that worried me was these ectopic heartbeats, and then they really flared up even stronger when I got back to the US, and I'm like, oh my God. Well, that didn't, it was nothing I've done in the natural health world I would say is bad, but it's like finding back to it's about turning the burner down. So I went on and worked with other people and tried all these different things, tried different diets, and still not really knowing anything. And in the end, I found this guy in America that resonated with what he was saying. So I rang him up and I started working with him, and or as my health coach, and I felt really good for fairly quickly. And I felt great working with him. And so I said, look, I feel so good. I would like to help other people. He goes, I'll become a health coach, and then I'm starting this program. You can work in the program. And, it was really good. And I was working as a health coach in the program through the COVID years. And then all of a sudden, I don't know what happened really, but all the coaches were sacked because they didn't agree with something that I didn't agree with either. And then quite a lot of us just left it in a bit of disgust. And we saw this guy turn away from that passion of his original cause of getting into what he was doing into purely money. And it was pretty gross to watch that the people, the health and the care for people, he was still spruiking that's what he was doing, but it was obviously all about the money, and anything that got in that way was going to be taken out.
Now, in your story, did you get fully remediated from Graves' disease?
Oh, yeah. I'm meant to get a thyroid blood test every 6 months, but I haven't had one in 4 years, I don't think. But I feel fine. Yeah. My thyroid was, the last time I did it was slightly under, so it's a little bit under because my thyroid got a bit ablated, but I saved my thyroid. It still works. Wow. And then I've just recently done some more learning in Mexico with a Canadian doctor of ways to turn that back on with frequency and energy machines, and it's pretty cool.
So you're winning?
Yeah, I'm totally winning. So yeah, look, I just basically, and this will go to where we're going with fluoride, which is one of many things, but that's the topic at the moment. And what I've learned is health. To have your health, you're bulletproof. To lose your health, is dreadful. When you have your health, I think Bobby Kennedy said this, but when you have your health, you've got 1,000 dreams. When you don't have your health, you've got one dream, and that's to get your health back. And it's so true, having lived through that. And I go to the point, backtrack a bit of, I wouldn't talk about me being sick because I was embarrassed, but I'm happy to talk about it now that I'm well. So, and all I really did for a long time was turn the burner down, and you're always working on it. It's not something you ever let go. So being cleaning up chemicals, antibiotics should be used for emergency only. That's it. And I don't care. I'll debate any doctor on that. They should only be emergency use. They are ruining people. And my guts were destroyed from them, I'm sure, having had chronic fatigue at 17 after years and years and years of antibiotics for recurring tonsillitis, despite being the fittest kid in school.
Well, let's go back onto the fitness element.
Yeah.
I heard that Alina has just finished a 500-kilometer race. Is that right?
Yes, she did an adventure race in Tasmania called The Legend, and it was starting and finishing in Huonville, just south of Hobart. And yeah, they went paddling, mountain biking, trekking, bit of whitewater paddling, flatwater paddling. They were on Lake Pedder at night under stars with no wind, which was superb. They got lost in the bush for a bit, going around in circles for probably 15 hours.
To a normal person like myself, I would like to think of myself as normal, 500 kilometers is insane.
Think of the training effect you get though over 5 days. In fact, she undoes her training because she's busy, and you got the two boys, and she said, it's a team of 4, and it's a cool lesson for life. You've got to get the slowest person to stay with you and across the finish line. That slowest person and the person that's going slower isn't quite as fit or struggling at any point changes. You might be the strongest person one day and the weakest person another day. So the idea is that you give your pack over to let someone carry your backpack, which doesn't have a lot in it, but or you get towed on the bike with a bungee cord. And some people can't give their pack up or can't get towed. They'd rather ruin the team and go slow than be helped out. It's a weird ego thing. And anyway, Alina said she was being towed on the bike for the first 3 days, and come the last day, she was off the front towing other people. So, yeah, but she gets, you can come fit in that time. They slept, I think, only 4 hours maybe 5 hours in that time. But it's not great. Like I stopped doing it back in 2000. My last big race was 2004, and that was one of the incidents I thought had caused my Graves' disease, because we had a terrible accident leading the biggest race in the world called Primal Quest. Third day, and another team.
How many kilometres?
That was, I don't know. That generally you talk of days because it might be hilly and slow or fast and flat, and it might have been 500 all up. I don't know. But we're in Washington State in mountains, and we'd come to this trekking leg, and there was another team with us, an Aussie team, and we're on this peak at a checkpoint, and the next checkpoint was down off the other side of this peak in this valley. And looking at the maps were really bad A4 photocopy that was not, it wasn't clear at all. It was very blurry. The 4 of us were in the front, and the other team, Guy Andrews, the Ironman, was in that team, and both his ITBs, both his knees were stuffed because his iliotibial bands were so tight, they were affecting the way he's walking. So they dropped off a bit coming up to this peak, and we're standing there for 15 minutes trying to work out a safe route down, and couldn't. And then the other guys arrived, and I'm chatting with Novak on the team, and we're going, what the hell? Anyway, we started scouting this steep, chossy, loose gully off this peak from this checkpoint. And to get down into it, you had to go back the way you'd come, over this rock, which was a little bit loose. And on the other side was a 200-metre cliff, and down this loose gully. And Nigel had gone down first, and he was down the gully from the top and dropped down a little cliff in the gully to the point where you couldn't see him, and then gone down a bit further, and he yelled out, "Yeah, it looks okay." Alina and Matt, my other teammate, were in the gully on the edge, and they said to me, "Oh, Nigel's saying it looks okay. Will you go down and do a second check?" So I'm making my way down. Said to the other guys, "Look, just wait here. We've got to do this one at a time." And I've just got down past Alina and Matt down this little cliff when I'm standing there. I can see Nigel below me, and I hear the world open up, like this noise rumbling. It's like, shit, it's an earthquake. I don't know what's going on, but I think I'm being swallowed up. I'm done. And I hugged the cliff. Like out of instinct, I went against the cliff, so I couldn't see above, but I looked up and I looked down. I could see Nigel, this boulder the size of probably a fridge, like a big wheel, went flying over my head and took Nigel out, killed him instantly, and that was it. So the other team, they decided to come. Well, one of the guys decided to come down into the gully, and that loose boulder I talked of, he pulled that out of the cliff by mistake. Tried to hold it. He cut an artery in his leg. Guy Andrews was with him. They got pressure on it and stopped the bleeding, and we were done. And Nigel was dead. And this is the lead team in this big adventure race, and it was broad daylight, no rain.
I was not expecting that story.
No, so that was back to when I mentioned something happened in 2004. I thought that when I think of why did I get Graves' disease? Why did I get this? I knew I'd had poor gut health from the antibiotics and having chronic fatigue before. I didn't realise I'd lived in mould, but I had. My family home was mouldy to the point where I was struggling later on in life when I was doing my mechanical engineering degree to live there. I was sneezing and the eyes were watering and I'd get sick all the time.
Because of the exposure.
Because of the mould. I'd forgotten that, or I didn't know that. But I put it down to this traumatic accident because emotional traumas are no different to physical traumas. And I didn't take that well either. Like, I was angry in myself. I was sad. You know, Alina coped a lot better. But yeah, I guess I focused on it a bit and took it on, and I was probably a bit victim-y. And that's just not a good place to be. Wow. So I thought that. Do you know what? I'd forgotten until I moved to Jindabyne in the end of 2019, and it was early 2020, before COVID. I was sitting there one day thinking, I don't know even what I was thinking of, but all of a sudden I'm like, holy crap, I got sick a month after having all those travel vaccines. And this is even before COVID and talk of the vaccines and stuff. And then, like, I knew because I'd become a health coach, but I'd forgotten until that point that in 2006, a month before, there was a problem with my thyroid showing up. Not full-blown Graves yet, but a problem that I just had all these things put into with the heavy metals and the MSG and the baby DNA and it's a mess. It's such a mess.
I don't want to move on from this elite athlete discussion on that story.
Yeah.
Tell me, what was the most exciting story that got you in all of this?
Why did I get into sport?
What normal person says, I'm going to spend 5 days in the bush, in the middle of the night, risking my life for what?
Skippy. I used to love watching Skippy on TV because Jerry the helicopter pilot and Mark and sometimes Sonny and Matt Hammond would dive into the water fully clothed to rescue someone in Ku-ring-gai National Park. And, you know, they were outdoors all the time in the beautiful bush and they were doing runs and, you know what, but I go back a bit, but from a young age, I've had the most awesome upbringing. My parents were into sport in terms of my dad did races. My mum used to go on runs and stuff, but my dad was a bit of a hero, and still is, in that, you know, I might have turned out differently. My brother's not as much into sport as I am, although he loves doing stuff, but I got really into it. So we would go on holidays to Lord Howe Island every year from when I was nothing to 12 years old. And we'd just run, like every morning Dad would wake me up which I loved, and we'd run from where we're staying up over some transit hill and down to Blinky Beach for a surf. And then, you know, with no tops on because we're wet, just run back in our cozies and our runners, the 1.5 kilometres back to the motel or the Pine Trees Lodge for breakfast. And like, that's living to me. Like, I know you might look a bit funny and have a sour face, but that's my passion. To me, it's freedom. I feel alive. I'm living from my heart. It's just the most beautiful thing. I still love it. But I lost that while I was sick. I couldn't do that. And it didn't worry me. I think if Alina was sick like that, she'd probably hang herself. Because I think she's more addicted to exercise than me. But
is that how you both met?
Yeah, so I'll get to that. But yeah, having that, you know, I love the outdoors. I'm very lucky to be taken to cool places. We would do bike rides for hundreds of kilometres as a family for fun on roads. Although I wouldn't do it these days, but yeah, we'd ride Mudgee to somewhere else and Burke to somewhere else, and we'd do an annual bike trip. We'd go on hikes. We were always active, and I just loved it. And so I got into alpine ski. I mean, at school, I was a very good runner. I was the captain of the athletics team in junior school. But then in senior school, I didn't grow. I didn't mature as quickly as other people. I probably didn't grow fully until I was 23, so I was a bit smaller, but I was still very fit. And so the team sports, I was playing rugby. Year 8, I was a mess. I was tiny. I was a good cricket player. I was the best bowler in year 6. And then year 8, I was getting smashed all over the park because I was still bowling my fast bowling, which ended up being spin pace by then, without any spin. So it was a mess. So I stopped doing that, and then I was into alpine ski racing, and I was training not much because it's coming from Sydney, maybe 1 week or 2 weeks a year, maybe, with Southern Alps Ski Club. I put through a fantastic old fella called Rex Cox, who was also, we'd done bushwalks with, the alpine ski racing. So when I was 13, I was around 13 years old. I was in the Southern Alps alpine race team, and Alina was training with the Perisher racing team. This is before all the inter-schools races and all the clubs now. I think there was Threadbow Racing Club. I think that was it. There was Perisher. And it was not the same as what it is now. So Alina was racing with them. I was at Southern Alps. There was a race at Smiggins, I think the ACT New South Wales Championships.
And you were both only 13 at this stage?
Yeah, so we'd done some training with them, but then I went up the T-bar with her in Smiggins, and we're both 13, but I was little and with high voice, and she was already probably the height she is now. And I remember thinking she was 16 and she thought I was 10. And she had the T-bar around her knees, which is what you do when you're going up the T-bar with someone smaller than you. There's so many Snowy Mountains, things that Snowy Mountains people would get in this. But, and then we were just friends. We didn't seek each other out. She lived in Canberra. I was in Sydney, and we used to see each other ski racing each year. And then she ended up working at Barracky Ski Lodge, where my family used to stay, like a bit later on, in her last year of school and after school. And we'd stay there. So she was like a waitress there and did the rooms, and we got to know her more. And then she asked, I was already got into cross-country skiing through my dad and mum. And then I was on the national junior team from age 15. And I loved it. It just meant I could come home from school and go training for 2 hours. I remember going on these 2-hour runs, 2-hour roller skis. I'd come home from school, off the train from town, 4 o'clock, sit in front of the TV, which had Skippy on it. I'd watch that. And eat like 3 or 5, I don't know how many bowls of cornflakes and brown sugar and honey and milk, like junk food, but build the energy up and go out training. And I never called it training. It was just fun. It was I guess it was like, knowing what I know now, it was kind of spiritual to be out in nature doing my passion amongst the bush and yeah.
How'd you go from ski school to kids?
Yeah, so Alina ended up joining my ski club, Cooma Ski Club, and then she ended up on the national cross-country ski team.
How old were you at this time?
Oh, that was more after school, so might have been 19, 20. And then she was actually so through university, yeah, we knew each other, and she was with another guy, living with another guy, and so I never considered Alina as that I would be married with her and have kids together at all. Like, she was off the table, and that didn't worry me at all, as she was just a friend. And I liked her boyfriend as much as I liked her. And I think in the end, I obviously probably liked her boyfriend more than she did. No, I'm not going anywhere with this. We're just friends. And she went to live in Alaska, in Fairbanks, to go to university, which she could do some of her law studies over there and get credit towards her ANU degree. And when she came back, she'd split from her boyfriend. And I guess we were hanging out, training together and stuff. And then we just things just happened and got together. Yeah, it was nice. It was very natural. And I've never had a forced relationship with anybody. Like I could never meet someone at a pub and I never did any of that. I didn't like the idea of it.
How long till you both got married?
7 years. We got together 2001, I think. 90. No, 90. 92. I think it was 92. And then we got married 99. Yeah. And our honeymoon, Chris, was, you'd love this. We did another eco challenge race in Argentina on our honeymoon. It's not normal, I know.
You guys are wild.
Oh, look, it's not normal.
Well, you deserve each other.
It's normal
obviously.
to us. Yeah.
You deserve each other. You find the partner you're
We do.
happy with.
We do.
That's amazing.
And so these days, sport involves cross-country skiing and still alpine skiing. And we were living in Canberra with our business after Mount Isa. We moved to Canberra for till 2019, from 2003 to 2019, and
there's so much we need to get through.
Yeah, cool.
Let's touch on your entrepreneurship, because I think that's a really inspiring story too, about following your passion.
Yeah.
And somehow succeeding.
Yeah.
Through your passions, which may not grow fruit for quite some time.
Yeah. So working as an engineer in Mount Isa, it was, and Alina as a lawyer, or as a contracts advisor and running the contracts department, I wasn't feeling fulfilled. The bit I liked the most was working with people. In university, I really liked the learning and the believe it or not, the maths and the physics, and I loved the design. And in the real world, a lot of the mechanical engineering students go into IT and programming. That was my worst, which you might not understand, Chris. It's your favourite, but I couldn't understand it. It didn't make any sense to me, and I couldn't even. Whereas everything else, I was great at. If I'd have understood it, maybe I could have got the university medal. But we sort of decided to finish adventure racing and knuckle down again. And there's been so many phases and changes to life, right? For everyone, but for us in particular, it's kind of crazy.
Because it's a big switch from doing engineering in a small mining town to then conducting Ironman racing in the capital city. We were still being active there. We were in the paddling club and the triathlon club, and then we were taking people. Alina and I were like, oh, cool. There's these islands in Lake Mundara, the lake, the lake downstream of the mine, which is the water supply and recreation lake, and we'd go and paddle in there, and we'd do these we'd swim out to an island and run across the island and swim to the next island and run across that, and I'm like, this is awesome. And we'd leave a bike somewhere and do a bike leg, and I love the variety, and I guess my career's been variety as well. And so we're working there, and we're like, you know what, this doesn't feel right just plodding away. Let's move back to, we loved living there. We made lots of good friends, and they were coming on these adventures with us. We were doing these all-night hikes, and it's just your dream job, Chris. So we went, you know what? Everyone we tell that we've done these adventure races goes, wow, that sounds, well, not everyone, but most people, that sounds so cool. I would love to do that. And we'd be like, no, I don't think you'd actually like it. But you might like a short version. Maybe we could turn this into putting some short races on. And so we moved back to Canberra, and we went
on a trip to Tasmania to do the National Row Gaining Championships. And on the ferry, I remember, you know, when you get into something, you're like, wow, this is how to set a business up. This is how you register a business name. So we're going, what can we call our business? And it was really all-encompassing of, this is fun, like, let's do this. And we set it up and we put our first race on, and it was an adventure race with teams of 3. And
it was called Adventure Race?
It was called the AROC Adventure Series. AROC. So our company name was AROC Sport. And so we held this adventure race, and they were the days when entries, you know, they were on paper and they came through the fax machine. And I've even forgotten what those things are, but yeah, we're standing and we're going, oh, I wonder if this is going to work. It's our first race. We've got to put money into it. But it was our passion. And like we've discussed, you follow your passion and good things will come. And so we ended up with 12 entries in that first race. But it was funny watching the entries come through. Like Alina and I'd be sitting there working, and you hear the fax machine, tuk, 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 and you'd run to it, go, oh wow, and you'd look at, oh, that's my brother. Oh, that's some friends. Oh, we know those people. And then this thing comes up, and you go, holy dooly, we don't know these people. Someone's giving us some cash. It was the funniest thing. And, you know, engineering hasn't been put behind because you learn a lot from any work and any learning. So it's not as though I don't use it. But we went on and we were holding adventure race, and we built up to this huge adventure race series with teams of 3, and sometimes we'd have to limit the field to 100 teams, 300 people. Sometimes we could go up above 600 people, depending on how we'd structure it. But we used to have a night race at Sydney Olympic Park. We'd do multiple different races in Canberra, always different, a different area. But whenever we did Belconnen, we'd often put the Jamison water slide into the race. So they'd ride in there from somewhere, they'd leave their bikes outside, they'd go inside, and they'd have to do 3 slides each to get their checkpoint card punched so they could go on and do the next orienteering leg. And yeah, it was so fun. I loved putting them on. It was a lot of work.
At the peak, how many people?
In the adventure races, the biggest adventure race probably, I'd have to look it up. I'm sure it was like 230 teams of 3. And we'd have, because we only had 100 boats, which we owned, which we still got. They're on 2 massive trailers at Bungarra. It makes me think we should put a paddling event on Lake Jindabyne. I do want to do a swim run event one day because I love that. And it's going to be called the Tarzan Challenge or something. Tarzan Quest. But back to that. We were holding a 24-hour adventure race at Bateman's Bay. So most of the races were 2 to 5 hours, where the winners are about 2, the slowest people are about 5. And, you know, people are just having fun. They're navigating, so they're not going flat out. It's strategy. There's little challenges along the way. They're navigating. It was just fun. Some people didn't have fun, like the teams that some people just can't work together and they're fighting, and one person gets lost out of their team, and then the rest of the team are looking for them for 3 hours. So we're holding this 24-hour adventure race, and we'd obviously scoped it. We got the approvals through council and any private land. I get this phone call. Who am I talking with? I said, oh, I don't know, you rang me. And this is Dr. James and blah, blah, blah. And he was this really upset guy was on the phone. And I said, what's the problem? He goes, you have one of your markers and people all over my land, and it's on my land, and you got to get this off right now, and I'm going to call the police. And I said, okay, which marker is it? What number is on it? Number 10. And my phone number was written on the marker as well. If there's any problem, call me. And so he called me, and I said, number 10, let me just look at the map. I looked at the map, and I go, oh. I said, look, I'm really sorry. I thought that was the caravan park's land, and they actually told me it was. But I've obviously asked the wrong person. well, you didn't ask me. I said, no, I didn't, because I thought I'd had approval to use that from the caravan park. There's been a mix-up. I'm really sorry. There's no mix-up, blah, blah, blah. He went off. And I said, look, I'm really concerned. If you're worried about people going all over your property, the best thing you can do is put that checkpoint back, because people are going to be wandering all over the place looking for that checkpoint. And I don't know in the end remember what happened, but everyone got through it and the race went on, and he was very upset. And at the end of the race, we'd found such amazing mountain bike tracks to put in the race, which we did, and other motorbike tracks that we use for mountain biking out in the western side of the highway, Princess Highway. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's the Princess Highway. Can't remember. That at the presentation, I remember saying, wasn't the mountain biking awesome here? And I said, look, we got in big trouble from a guy who said he was a doctor that was very angry, and because of the mountain bike tracks and because of this guy, we're going to start a mountain bike race that's 100 kilometres on the best tracks in the world, called the Angry Doctor. and that was a hit. And in the end, the Angry Doctor, we went to see him once, and he didn't know it was us. And he's saying, oh, this was on when the race was about to happen. And he goes, oh, you know the race is in town. It's named after me. And we're going, yeah, I know. I'm Tom and this is Alina. Oh, dear. And so we had that race, and we had another 100k bike race in Canberra called Capital Punishment. And then 2008, we started together with the Northface gear company, a race called the Northface 100, which was a trail run in the Blue Mountains. That we scoped a few places around Australia to see where we're going to put this run on, and we ended up back thinking, well, let's just go and ask National Parks, the Blue Mountains, thinking there's no way they're going to allow this. And I walked into their office, and the commercial licensing officer there was a guy called Tony Garbolini, lovely guy, and he goes, oh, you're Tom and Alina, you're the Rogainers. And I'm going, oh, okay. And then the regional manager, he came in, and he said, and a guy called Jeff Luscombe, he was Tony Garbolini's Rogaining partner, and knew us, and I knew of Jeff Luscombe. Super good guys, beautifully run national park, and I said to him, look, we want to put this run on. He goes, that sounds great. But, first year's obviously going to be quite small with numbers, and it was 150 runners. But we don't want to leave it like that. This is a business. We want to grow it to, a couple of thousand, I don't know, maybe 10,000. I don't know what we can get to. And he said, what we get millions of visitors here each year, what's another couple of thousand going to do? And I've gone, you legend. Yes, that's such a great attitude that we should be having all over Australia.
Could you bring that skill set to our mountains here?
Yeah, well, that run, I'll get back to that, but that run, we went up until 2017. We actually changed the name to Ultra Trail Australia. It grew into the third biggest trail run in the world, and then the Ironman, the opposition CEO, I don't know what you call it, the general manager or CEO of Asia Pacific, so New Zealand, Australia, not sure about the Asia part, but Oceania, so New Zealand, Australia. He ran the event in 2017, which was the only year we ever had wet conditions and had to change the course at the last minute, which we did beautifully. We had our team out working their rings off until 2 a.m. the night before the 100k race. So it was a 100k run, 50k run, 22k run, and then we started an 11 later. But we changed the course. The event unravelled. Oh, not unravelled. The event unravelled. The event ran seamlessly, and Dave Beach, who was the head of Oceania Ironman, emailed me after and said that was one of the greatest events I've done in a long time. Can we chat? And I didn't mean to ignore him at all. He'd just written straight after the race, and I'm shattered because I used to not sleep pretty much for 6 months before it, trying to get it all ready. And so I read this email out to my staff at our party on the Sunday night, where we all sat around playing the didgeridoo and having a laugh and a joke and appreciation of each other. And it was like 3 months later, I thought, oh, geez, I never replied to Dave. Which, in the end, was probably method in my slackness, in that the price probably went up with the thinking that I wasn't that keen on selling. And so I wasn't keen on selling.
He was the general manager of the Ironman.
Well, Oceania, again, I don't know if it's I think it's GM. Yeah, so the head of Australia, New Zealand Ironman. Yeah, really good guy.
And they're continuing this.
And so that we discussed about selling and came up with a price, and it was a 2018 event. In that week, the final sale went through. We got paid in that week leading up to the event, and so we had a final earn out amount to get, and that involved being involved with the event it was a 2-year deal, and the 2020 event couldn't happen because of lockdowns, because it was in May 2020 and the lockdown started at the 22nd of March. And so they very, very kindly didn't have to take me on because the contract ended and they could have got away without my final payout. But Dave went to the head office and said, look, this event, it's great, we owe Tom this, and they agreed, and they took me on to the following year to get the earn out. And from then on, there's been some tough years. They had COVID, they had the following year, the following year was okay, but they had restrictions with all the 6 foot made up rule.
Yeah, these are the fittest athletes in Australia with no comorbidities.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But they still, to be able to run it, everyone had to do COVID procedures. And yeah.
Could you organise something like this in our region today?
Well, so in 2023, 24, 25, what are we? 2022, I still work for Ironman now as a course director for that trail run, which I love. It's one of my favourite weeks of the year. And in 2022, they wanted to put an event on in the Snowy Mountains. So that's now we just did the 3rd year of it in November, end of November 2024. That was, was that the 3rd year? Yeah, that was the 3rd year. 22, 24, yeah. So this year, 2025, in November, will be the 4th year of that event. And it's 100 mile, 100k, 50k, 30k. And I'm hoping we'll put on a shorter event for the local kids and community.
And there'll be another run this year.
Yeah, in November. And so that event itself, personally, I see this town struggling even now in winter sometimes, apart from school holidays when it's just a madness. But we have these periods even during winter that's quiet, and there's shops that we like going to, and you think, these poor buggers, if they can't get the people in, they're going to have to fold. You can't keep making losses and working your rings off. And so we are a tourism town, and this is so important to have events like this come in, and it's a big event now. It could be way bigger. I think there was 3,500 starters, maybe 4,000 entrants. I'm not sure of that exact figure, but it's somewhere between 3,000 and 4,000. So it's a big event, and town got really busy at the end of November when it's normally quiet, from the Wednesday through to the Sunday, and all the shops, if they, we'd warned them that people were coming, stock up on your stock, and it's hard because they must get a lot of people come in saying, we're holding this big event, make sure you've got so they sort of switch off, but now they know to do it.
What's the potential of this? You say 3,000 or 4,000 last year.
Look,
Could this swell to triple that number?
yeah, I mean, definitely double, but there's restrictions. And the restrictions aren't by council, it's purely national park restriction, which is disappointing in that the race goes on trail. There's some fire trail, a bit of road, mostly trail. There's beautiful trails. The national parks have managed to get funding and trail builders to build some of the most beautiful trails in the country. You sort of, you can't go trash the trails, but they're concerned about the trails being damaged. To me, that's, there's walkers, there's runners, there's whoever on the trails, and they're there to contain people to those trails. If they get a bit of damage, there's maintenance needs to be done, and it's showing the trail hasn't been built properly. And I'm not speaking out of school here to say there's an issue if you can't allow more people on trails. And I know it's not even a debate, but the event, and it's not my event, it's Ironman, so I'm speaking personally, but the numbers could go to double pretty easily. There's the capacity, there's the number of people wanting to run, and it's a beautiful destination. It's a people might take a week off or just the 4 days off, come to the area. It's a big boost for this area, which needs it.
Is there potential for more events in the year?
Ironman wouldn't put on another race here, but as I said, we could put on a paddling event, but it might just be locals with all these kayaks that we've got, and that could be a team. You get Canberrans maybe, a team, even a corporate type thing, a relay with 3 people paddling on a boat. I think it'd be cool. And then this swim run, one of the things I love doing. Not many people actually seem to join me except JJ, our dog. But yeah, I'll go from our place and run the mountain bike tracks and then swim across Mill Creek, just only like 100 metres, and then jump back out, climb up the hill, jump on the mountain bike track, run, come down the bush and swim across to Pooh Bay or to Copper Tom Point, and then run around Pooh Bay with another short swim. And so I do this like loop of 5Ks of running and, I don't know, 400 metres of swimming maybe less. And I love it. I'm in and out. I'm fully clothed. I've got my shoes on. And this is where the Tarzan challenge, the Tarzan quest comes from. Having not been healthy and lost my health and lost everything, to feel like this again, and I like to think I feel like Tarzan again, it's everything. It's so cool.
Wow. Well, let's switch focus to more community now.
Yeah.
How would you describe your experience with local council over the years from past to now?
Well, to be honest, I haven't had much experience with local council. I mean, where I live, the roads are fine, the water's been fine. It was interesting in that when I moved here from Canberra fluoridate their water. I wanted to get... so on my health journey, sorry to keep stepping back, but on the health journey, you learn that taking the load off, no matter how seemingly small, is a good thing. So whether that's eating food in the supermarket, the canned food, the processed food, the vegetables that aren't organic, they're grown with pesticides and herbicides. So eating those chemicals is crazy. Take that load off. Fluoride, get it out of your water. It's a toxic waste product, either from the aluminium smelting industry or from the fertilizer industry, depending on what sort of fluoride you're using. So sleep well, eat well, think well, live well. It's pretty simple. So all these loads no matter how small, you're better off reducing that load, even if it's one at a time. So I've forgotten what your original question was.
What was your experience with counselling?
Oh yeah. So when we arrived
at the last meeting,
and one of those things was also EMFs, electromagnetic fields, or EMR, electromagnetic radiation. I learnt to be able to assess EMFs for people in the homes, and this is a really important topic in that if you're living right next to a phone tower, as people in Jindabyne and all over the cities are, how's your sleep? You know, are you fine? Is something going on? So we did talk with council because they were upgrading the phone towers to 5G, and to me 5G in itself, I don't talk of that. I'll talk of the radio frequency radiation. You do not want to be living right next to a phone tower without doing something about it. Wi-Fi, you turn it off at night. You don't have your phone always sending, like most people have their phone, and people can look at it right now. Is your Wi-Fi and your Bluetooth turned on your phone? Because if I had my meter here, I'd show you how that sounds and the readings that you get from it. It's constantly transmitting if your Wi-Fi and Bluetooth are turned on. So some people have their phones turned on with the Wi-Fi and Bluetooth turned on all the time next to under their pillows or at their table. You know, I've met. Why do people get sensitive to this? To me, it's a load, and I was definitely affected, I know, but there was lots going on in my body. The more stuff you've got going on, the worse these seemingly smaller things are for you. So someone might not be affected, but they might be. Chris Neal, the kinesiologist that comes to Jindabyne, is incredible. He sees people from the kinesiology-wise of actually questioning their body, muscle testing their body, who are highly overloaded with EMF toxicity. And because you can't see it, you don't refer to it. So anyway, we talked to council and tried to work out how we can talk to these people from Telstra about, is there a way to make this a bit safer and maybe move the phone tower away from the school. The school was right next to it, as it's not safe. That went nowhere. So
no one from council was able to help you at the time?
Look, I don't know, because I didn't speak to council personally, so I don't know, but it was a I don't know if it was a state government thing. I don't know, Chris. Yeah, I've never really delved into that side of it, but I when we got here, I tested the water as I've always done. I took samples of the lake and took sample at the tap, just to see what was in it, so I knew how to filter it best. Because I didn't want to be drinking chlorine, I didn't want to be drinking fluoride and whatever else is in the water, such as pharmaceutical drugs that people pee down the toilet or throw in the garbage and end up leaching into the water supply, which I've heard happens in places. Anyway, I tested the water when we arrived. I sent it to ALS Labs in Canberra. The results came back, and I was a bit pleasantly surprised for two things. One is that the water at the tap matched the water in the lake almost identically, except the water in the tap had chlorine in it, and there was no fluoride in it. And we're in East Jindabyne, and I'm like, holy dooly, there's no fluoride in this water. This is an even better town than I thought. And then we had to speak to council about, we had a leaking pipe after we moved in, and so we got this massive water bill. And there is a grace once you buy a home. There's something like there's a grace, a one-off, tear the bill up if it's a mistake and it's a leak. So we got that done. But I remember speaking with the council and said, you got no fluoride in this water. They go, yeah, no, there's none in it. And that's so good. He said, oh no, we're working to fix it. And I said, no, don't fix it. Why are you fixing it? Oh, because people are saying they want it back in the water for their teeth. And anyway, but he did say, look, send some information if you think it's not good, and because we want to consider both sides. And you know what? I'm just lazy. I sort of given up because it was during COVID
Well, I'm glad you brought it up because this coming Thursday, or likely this coming Thursday, there is a motion to undertake a community survey into discontinuing public water fluoridation. Do you have any take on that? Do you have any comments?
Yeah, so I think I'm going to be speaking at it. I've applied last night to give a 5-minute public forum presentation and just give another opinion. And I'm happy for the side against fluoride to speak. A lady called Alison from, I'm not sure where she was from, Bombala or Dalgety, I'm not sure. She spoke last week, the meeting 2 weeks ago, which I was at. And, you know, it's an interesting one in that, to me, I haven't drunk fluoride for 20 years. My kids never drink fluoride unless they're absolutely out of water at school, which is very rare. The reason it's in the water is not for killing pathogens like chlorine is. It's in there as a medication. It's in there for our dental health. Now there's a lot of studies showing it's actually harmful to our health. There's studies showing it's not harmful to our health. There's studies showing it's dangerous to our teeth. It causes fluorosis in both our teeth, which are basically bones, and our bones, our skeletal system. So, and fluorosis is where, I don't know, look up what fluorosis is. I don't even know how to explain it, but it's almost, I guess it's like the fluoride is replacing calcium maybe. I'm not sure. I have to research that before Thursday.
What would be your main objections to fluoride being included in the water?
Well, number one, it's forced medication, which goes... I'm not a lawyer, and I don't think Alina would know this, but is that illegal to forcibly medicate someone without having their consent, their informed consent? I've never given my consent when I moved here or in Canberra, and I remove it. I drink reverse osmosis water at home. That's what we do. And I researched what filters remove fluoride because I didn't want fluoride years ago, and I tested all these different non-reverse osmosis filters that said we remove 99% of fluoride, and most of them remove nothing. And like there's activated alumina you can run it through, but I didn't like the sound of that with the alumina. But I tried it and didn't do anything. Turns out the pH of the water you're running through it has to be something like under 6 for it to be effective, and our drinking water pH is about 7. So of course that's not going to work. So yeah, just remind me again, Chris.
Oh, what were your main objections to fluoride?
Objections. Yeah. So number one is the forced medication against our wills. Now, whether it's healthy or it's not healthy, it doesn't matter. It's a forced medication, and it's not right in anybody's. Surely everyone would agree with that. You can take it number two is it's in the water. How much of our water do you think goes into our bodies? How much of the water, the town water, do we drink out of all the water that's treated?
Gee, that's a great question. So I suppose you'd have to factor in things like your washing machine, your dishwasher,
Toilet,
garden, maybe
showers.
I don't know, 20-30%, maybe less.
I think it's only not like it's under. I think it's over 99% is not drunk. Why is the money being spent to put something that's costing the community, that's actually toxic, it's an industrial waste product, into our water when if people really want, they could buy their Colgate toothpaste, their Coles toothpaste. The council could buy everyone a tube of toothpaste every week and say use this, because topically applied on the teeth, if fluoride has any positive effect, which I still don't use fluoride toothpaste, I haven't for a long time, and I don't let a dentist, if I see a dentist, I will not let them put fluoride on my teeth. That's the only possible good thing, is using it topically. Swallowing it makes no sense. Like, and also I don't even think there's been, I've got to go through PubMed, but I don't even think there's been a study on what it's doing to your gut bacteria. Like, is it antimicrobial in some form or other, like a minor antimicrobial? I don't know. But as I said originally, antibiotics should be emergency use. Like, killing your flora in your system is huge. We are 50 trillion cells. We are 500 trillion bacteria. We're more bacteria than we are our own.
Well, it seems like you're not fully against it, but you're more for letting people choose for themselves whether they want to take it or not.
Look, it's the whole debate. It's a bit like Bobby Kennedy, people calling him anti-vax. He's not anti-vax. All he wants is to do the studies. That's all. And it's the same with this. It's pretty crazy in that, we all know our science is corrupted, in that industry can get into the ears or the pockets of people doing studies and get a certain outcome that they're looking for, or ignore other outcomes that aren't what they're looking for. And then you've got this science based on following the science, and look where that got us in 2021, 22, 23. Hopefully a lot of people know that now, but some people don't. But
what about the claim that, look, this is a well-studied sort of thing, that fluoridation is everywhere, it's ubiquitous, it's all over the world?
Yeah, so fluoridation, adding fluoride, so there can be natural fluoride levels in water from leaching through rocks, and that's a different form of fluoride than this industrial waste product. The industrial waste product, how much of the world do you think, well, so let's start with this. How much of the world do you think has a town water supply that has fluoride in it? So they're being exposed to this industrial waste product.
Well, I imagine that most countries would, right? Like America would, because they're developed. All the developed countries would.
Yeah. Do you think China does?
Oh, that's a great question. Knowing that they would probably want the population to take care of their own health, they probably wouldn't.
Okay.
But that's mostly on a financial basis that they wouldn't.
Yeah, okay. And Europe?
Oh, they seem very socialist, so let's go with most of Europe.
Yeah. So, this is going to shock you, but it's the answer of how much of Europe has fluoridated water is 2%.
Wow.
I'm going to repeat that.
I'll have to look that up.
I'm going to repeat that
2%.
Because that's insane. Only 2% of European countries have fluoride added to their water supplies. And of the world, it's 5%.
Wow.
If something's that good, why is New South Wales I think New South Wales is something like 96% of this state. Queensland's now down to probably half. Well, I'm not sure actually. There's something like 88 councils, 77 or 88 councils in Queensland, and almost half of them, or around half of them, are now not fluoridating their town water supplies, their municipal water supplies.
If you had a direct line to the councillors, what would your message be?
I've actually seen the motion that Andrew Thaler proposed, and I'm very grateful to him for doing this. It's leading towards, let's have a town vote, a regional council area Snowy Monaro vote. I worry about that though, given the fact that I don't want fluoride in the water. I mean, I'm drinking non-fluoridated water, but I'm still showering in it. You can't really, unless you buy an expensive water filtration plant to put in your home and then waste a substantial amount of the water, because reverse osmosis sends quite a lot of water, quite a percentage of water to waste. Unless you do that, you've got no hope. You can't filter out the fluoride. So shower in the water. We've got an organic veggie garden. We use that water. So it's runoff. We actually feed our chickens and our dog with reverse osmosis water, which sometimes they add minerals into. Why put something that's got additives in something natural? Like, take it back to natural living before all of this was here. You lived by a mountain stream and you drank the stream water. Why? I understand adding chlorine in, but I want to get that out of my water. But I understand disinfecting it or getting rid of the pathogens. But a good filtration system would be better, and we don't have the filtration here. We're adding chlorine, and now we're adding fluoride. The message would be, and back to doing a survey of the population. I worry most people would still vote for fluoride in their water, and that comes back to the whole thing of the majority of people have program thinking, rather than, they're not using their own logic. They're using the programming that they've read in the newspaper, television, or the corrupted science. And it's incorrect. And I think that the vote might fail in the side, fluoride might be voted to keep because it's good for my teeth, which I know is wrong.
Let me take that angle.
Yeah.
Suppose I'm someone in town, I'm voting. Tom,
yeah.
I want fluoride to stay in my water.
Yeah.
Like, I have the same voting power as you. Why should I be forced to take fluoride out when I want it in there?
Yeah. So you can, if you want fluoride, you can choose to, like, back to the mass medication, forced medication. Why are you going to affect me? I'll take it to that. Like, I'm happy for you to use fluoride if you want. Get the toothpaste, get the dental treatments, even get I think they were red pills you put in your mouth. Don't swallow it though, but spit it out. But you keep doing your fluoride. I'm happy for you to do that. I don't want fluoride, and so I turn that question around and say, why do you want to affect me?
I think what you're trying to say is it's easier for me to add fluoride than it is for you to take it out.
That's right. It should be back. Medication should be back to our personal choice. Yeah, and that's when I was going in the pathway. Bobby Kennedy, all he wants is the safety studies done.
So you'd be happy to support the other practical alternatives?
Like
tablets and...
if people want to, let them have it. Absolutely. I mean, I've spoken to a dentist about this, and they say, "Oh no, fluoride's okay because," and I'm like, "What, drinking it? Oh, maybe not, but topically, yeah." And I said, "Well, why do you say that?" And they said, "Well, our diets are so poor, it's actually helping. It's prevent tooth decay with the poor diets. Like, we eat so much sugar," which is a really stupid argument. And also, it's with the research that's been done, it isn't helping the teeth. Like, there was initial. This could go into the history of why fluoride's in our water, and I don't really know what's the truth. But I have seen information and a summary, which I might get slightly right here, so don't take this as gospel, but look into this yourself if you're interested. But it's like the 1900s, early 1900s, 1910. There's a group called the Mellon Institute. I can't remember what they were involved with, but in 1930 someone got on their board or went to work for them, and they had come from Alcoa. And Alcoa, people might not remember, but I don't know if it's still a thing, but it's the aluminum company of America. They were struggling getting rid of the toxic industrial waste called fluoride, or sodium fluoride. And this guy had been given the directive to, get rid of it without costing us a fortune to dump it. Because it's toxic waste. To dump toxic waste, you pay a premium. They were already using it as rat poison and insecticide, but they couldn't only do so much of that because there's only so many rats and insects. And so he had the idea to go to, this is where, it's very tricky. And again, this might be wrong, but this is what I've read in multiple places. And it's a good story. And he'd gone to the American government, and it's something to do with dental association or health and treasury were combined, and convinced them to do, or they were doing a study, or they'd noticed that someone with a higher, there was an area in the US that had a higher natural level of fluoride in their water, and people in that area had better teeth and less decay. And so they thought, wow, this is interesting, let's try adding this fluoride to the water. So they did a study, and it showed there was, a bit of a protection for these people. I've read that years later they came out and said, actually, we misread the findings, but I don't know. You get this on all sides. I don't know what the truth is, Chris, but in the end, this guy was able to get rid of the Alcoa's toxic waste product into the drinking water and get paid extra for doing that. So not only was he not spending a dumping fee for toxic waste, they were getting a kickback because the councils or the governments were buying the product to add to the water to disappear into the people's bodies. Yeah. Is
there anything else you'd like to add on that topic? No pun intended.
Topical. Yeah, look, some of the health impacts, the IQ, the endocrine system is affected. So the thyroid, back to the thyroid and my thyroid, we need iodine for the thyroid to function. We don't get iodine in our diets anymore. You have to it's one supplement you have to take, and everyone should be taking, especially pregnant women, because interestingly, there's studies showing the IQ of the baby. If the pregnant mother doesn't take iodine, a good type of iodine, the IQ is affected and it never gets back. Maybe that's got to do with fluoride drunk by the mother. I don't know. It's a possibility. The thyroid is strongly affected by chlorine and fluoride and bromide. They strongly attach to the thyroid. And the hormone receptors. So
that's absolutely fascinating stuff, Tom. Thank you.
So there's other, the brain effects are huge. The fact that it does cause dental fluorosis and skeletal fluorosis, which makes bones brittle, I guess harder, and if it's swapping out the calcium, then it's getting not what it should be, so harder and more brittle and chalky. So it probably, more research might need to be doing, or it's already done and it's covered up, I don't know, but sometimes you do have to go on a bit of gut feel as well, and it's not right. It's definitely not right to be using this. So you get chalky but brittle bones, causing more osteoporosis, more fractures in older age, but more brittle bones, more calcification of the soft tissues of the body. It's not ideal. Yeah.
Well, looking ahead, what would be your vision for the Snowy Monaro over the next decade?
For Snowy Monaro, we could have, back to taking loads off. I mean, I'd love to get fluoride out of the water. I'd love to get another chemical out of our bodies or out of our food supply is or the chemical agriculture. I would love to become a billionaire, to, very rich, to be able to fund organic permaculture, improved soil food for the community for free. I would love to be able to do that. That would be, I can't even think as far as a legacy, but that would just be a most incredible thing to do. And whether people care about it or not, again, they don't. A lot of people just don't care about this. But when people, back to when you don't have your health, you've only got one dream, and that's to get healthy. When people, we see what happens these days as people age, they become stiffer and sorer and things are harder, and it's not normal. We don't have to be doing that. What's causing it? All of this stuff is causing it. All of it. Do we just address one? Well, no, we try to address all of it. I know it's a slow process and it's very tricky dealing with the powers that be, and even trying to get to talk to them is very difficult. But the government's like parents in a family. Like, they're there to look after their kids. They're there to support their own kids, and not like, yeah, sure, I'll help out the neighbours, but I'm going to look after my own family first. Like, it's preposterous to think that dad's just going to go off and spend all his time with the neighbours' kids because they've never been to Disneyland or something. So yeah, to get these chemicals out of our food, like, it'd be amazing to have education in improving our soils, which is done naturally. It's not done with chemicals. It's a disaster. And having the food and having the nutrients brought back to our food grown locally, have greenhouses so we can continue to grow through winter. That would be amazing. It's real stewardship of the land. And that's the kind of thing I see with national parks is, yes, they're managing a massive amount of land. I think if I take this back to our guts and our bodies, we have a biome. We've got 500 trillion cells, bacteria in our bodies. It's the same in nature. It's exactly the same. We go killing it with pesticides. What else are we doing? It's like the cane toad coming into Queensland, and now it's all over the place up north, and it's in Kakadu. It didn't do the original job to get the cane beetle, but it's spread everywhere, and it's killing our natural flora and fauna. Well, definitely the fauna. But I see council and I see parks using chemical pesticides, and there's safer stuff to use if they want to do that. And how far are they getting with that? Just by the sides of the roads? What's the point? It all ends up back in our drinking water. It's I know there's a problem with the snow gums. Is it a fungus or a beetle? I think it's a fungus. In our guts, if we get out of whack from antibiotics and leaky large intestine or leaky gut, our biome will get out of balance. So naturally in our guts is good bacteria, bad bacteria, fungus, good, bad, parasites, worms. It's all sort of in there to some extent anyway. It's all kept in check, in balance. When you add antibiotics, you might kill out it might be targeted to the bad bacteria, probably take out a lot of the good bacteria. What's that do for the fungus and the parasites? They're like, yep, happy days, let's go. They take over. So you end up with a fungal issue. And I'm not knocking antibiotics for emergency use at all. I think that's fantastic, but you don't go down that pathway. If it's just a chronic illness or something that's not life-threatening. And same with out there, like smashing everywhere with our nature with chemicals to kill. I reckon that's probably, I mean, I don't know, I'm not a botanist or anything, but surely that's got to play into these issues that we're having with trees dying and fungus outbreaks, and yeah, it's got to play a role.
What changes would you like to see in how council operates, especially in terms of maybe transparency and community engagement?
Yeah, look, I was shocked after going to that meeting 2 weeks ago, and I went because they had a fluoride was on the table, even though it didn't get discussed because there was lots of other stuff being discussed. I was pleasantly surprised how quickly that 5 hours went, and how I was shocked at how there's a want to not make things transparent and not have accountability. And you know, like it or hate it, there's a new bunch of councillors that got in at the last election who are bringing this to the attention of all of us. And I was shocked at how amazing it was. And if I focus in on one councillor, Andrew Thaler, I was floored by how good he spoke, how well he spoke. And you know, in the past, he's frightened me, and I've worried about him representing the things I care about, thinking, oh, he's rude and he's attacks and he's this and he's that. How much of that have I read in the mainstream media and heard by hearsay, and how much have I seen? Well, I haven't seen anything for myself. It's just hearsay. And I've investigated a few things, and it's turned out that Andrew was right. Yes, he might be quite confronting for some people, but you know what? Have some bloody balls. There's some really bad things have gone on in council. It needs to be called out, and it needs to be fixed. That's the only way forward, unless we just want to keep deteriorating into this pit of muck and despair, which is what we were doing until this happened with this change at the recent elections. And it's really hard to watch people who are on our side who are now attacking our side. I don't know why this has happened, except it's back to that whole programming. Like, we're not thinking critically here. And seeing Andrew speak at that meeting, he was never rude. He stood his ground. He was being called out incorrectly most of the time. And a lot of it was to do with what was happening? Just the asbestos issue down at Mikalago. That was full on. That poor family has been living like that. Was it 3 years? I don't know, 4 years. And nothing's happened. And it was because of Luke Williamson making the motion to discuss it, that and the work that you've been doing, and obviously Reuben and Andrew and the other people that want to see this wrong righted, corrected, that this came to be discussed at the meeting. And is it Matt, the affected man of the house? He spoke, and it was quite emotional for him. I was shocked when he told of how he'd been, you know, after uncovering it and discussing with council, and they'd done site visits and blah, 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 he'd received a letter from them highlighting what they'd seen and discussed. And at the end of the letter, it went into this paragraph of, if you don't comply with the terms in this letter, you will be fined $2 million and an ongoing fee of such and such. And he mentioned this, and I read the letter last week, and I was pretty shocked that he's been threatened And I'm like, it doesn't even make any sense how he's been threatened. So these issues weren't being fixed. So the lack of accountability is incredible. So when that was being discussed, in one of the points in that motion it was put forward to vote on, was to do with accountability, I guess, and we need to uncover what's happened so we can write it. And it was nothing like we're going to take the person who's responsible for this out. It wasn't at all. But I heard one of the councillors who wasn't there, who was on Zoom, say that this is going to turn into a witch hunt. I don't like that point because it was all about accountability. It's going to turn into a witch hunt. And I'm thinking to myself, what is going on here? What have we been dealing with? Like, it was, no one in their right mind could possibly think that that is an appropriate response at all. So, and Andrew was, even Ruben and Luke were saying things and getting called order that, you're blaming council. We can't blame our staff. And they're like, no, when did I blame the staff? I'm not blaming the staff. So how do you have these hard conversations without being a braveheart, which Andrew was? He stood up and he didn't just, I couldn't do that. I would sit back down and go, oh yeah, sorry. But he is standing up there for us all. Whether you agree with, whether you like him or not, he is there to make this place better. And it's very selfless. It's quite phenomenal. Like, I could not do that and I wouldn't be good at it, and I don't like the idea of doing it. And it's not my passion, but my passion's fixing it, but I'm not helping. Although, I want to support though, so yeah.
Do you feel that more people in the community are starting to wake up to these issues and they're starting to get involved? There is definitely a movement, but it's tricky when you've got the detractors, because unless you get involved personally, you cannot see it from the inside. So how can you possibly make a judgment call on, is this right or wrong? And is this being done without aggression and fairly or not? So all I can recommend to people is don't watch a meeting on Zoom. Come to a meeting and see what's going on and see how these guys are unfortunately battling for us. It shouldn't be like that. It's a group of people on a team. And this goes back to my adventure racing days. Some teams that I were in were dysfunctional, and you've got different goals. Generally, we didn't have different... generally, one person in the team wasn't corrupted to take the whole team down or anything. But it's a bit like that, in that, how do you work with a dysfunctional team where there's different goals and different reasons for being there? And I know why Andrew and I know why Luke and I know why Ruben are on that council. And I'm sorry, I can't remember. I remember Bob's name, but not the other. Nick, yeah, and Nick. And I know why they're there, to help. They just want to see this place thrive, not survive. We don't want to survive, we want to thrive. And there is a huge impediment in their way, like it or not. That's what's happening, and I saw it with my own eyes. So, and I don't judge any of them. I'm not judging. I'm not gonna do that. I want to stay neutral to it all, because I don't know the whole story myself. But from what I observed last meeting, without judgment and with, care and love and support for everyone, I saw this ridiculous situation unfold where the accountability side is trying to be blocked. So, anyway. Well, I appreciate your time. Thank you very much, Tom. It's been a great afternoon.
It's been an awesome afternoon, Chris. Thank you very much. It's nice to see your place.
Yeah, it's nice to have you here.
Thank you. And I want to thank you for your hours not hours, days, not days, months, not months, years. Like the amount of work that you're putting into this, Chris, it's absolutely phenomenal. All selfless, all for the sake of bettering our community. So thank you.
Oh, all for the Monaro, my friend.
Monaro, call them out, demand the truth, dispel the doubt. For governance must serve the land, not crush its people with sleight of hand. The worst of crisis left to fester, no justice found, no old redress here. Shame on the gang who turned their backs. Shame on this